What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 8 of the More Than Nothing podcast. I am Miranda Alcaraz, and as usual, here to dive deeper into a post that I made at some point on my Instagram. I like to call them my quote posts, things that are either quotes from other people that stood out to me, and I felt like I wanted to share my take on it with my social media, or things that were just on my mind and I put out there with a little description on social media. The idea for the podcast, as always, is to dive deeper into those things, and because some of them were a year or so ago that I posted, kind of seeing where I'm at with it now, because we're always growing and changing and learning. So the post that I chose this week is about time management. And it's hard for me to talk about this one, to be honest, because this is something that I'm really not good at, like really bad. And it's not that I feel like I waste a lot of time. I just am not very organized with my time. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, especially any of us that have multiple things going on, like a job and a family, or a job and a hobby, or a job and a hobby and a family and friends. So it's time management is crucial, and we hear over and over again that we all have the same 24 hours and how you spend your time, and it needs to be scheduled out and all of that. And I think many of us with the best intentions try to do that, and find it to be harder or maybe not come natural to us. So let me read the post first, because it's not about time management in the way that most of us are typically thinking of time management. What we think about or hear most of the time is your time versus your priorities. So you make time for what's a priority for you. Or instead of saying, I don't have time for this, say, this is not a priority right now. And I completely agree with that, but that is actually not what this specific post was about. This specific post was about the amount of time we spend on something versus the effort that we're putting into it, and how those are not equal. And just because something takes a long time doesn't mean that the effort level was high or even worth it at all. So the quote post itself says, we need to stop mistaking time for effort. And my little write-up here was, because saying I don't have time is easier than saying I don't want to work that hard. So next time, instead of saying I don't have time, instead of swapping it for it's not a priority, try saying I just don't feel like working that hard, and see how that kind of makes you feel. Your sessions, and this was specifically about fitness, of course, because that's what a lot of my posts are about on my page, but it can apply to other areas as well. Your sessions don't need to be long, complicated, expensive, or glamorous. Hell, I don't even need you to leave your living room, but while you're in it, you do need to be prepared to be uncomfortable, push your limits for the day for 10 to 20 minutes, then move on. It's not that you can't, it's whether or not you will. So that was the original post. And of course, I made some kind of notes about how I wanted to talk about this and kind of the way that I think about this, both for fitness. A lot of this stuff is really easy for me to talk about with fitness, because in reality, when it comes to fitness stuff, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp and have it well figured out. So I do like to talk about other areas, because there are many other areas that I do not have it figured out, and there's still places that I'm working. So, as I mentioned before, I do think that we start with a priorities list. So I do want to go back to talking about, is it that you don't have time or it's not a priority? So I think that is a great place to start before we even start talking about the effort and maybe the misunderstanding that you have about that you can spend your time more wisely. Is let's talk about your priorities. So we hear the example all the time. I've used this example a lot for fitness. If you have time to watch a 30-minute episode of The Office, you have time to work out. So if you're spending 30 minutes a day watching anything on television, you technically do have time to work out. You just choose the TV over the fitness. Or if you have time to go out with your friends for a drink every day after work. You do have time to work out. It's just that you're prioritizing. And I'm not saying ever that one thing is more important, better, more necessary than the other. I have my opinions for sure, but whatever it is that's making you happy or whatever it is that will help you to achieve your goals are what you should prioritize. So if going out with your friends makes you happy, helps you achieve your goals, what maybe your goals are to become more social, then that would be a great way to spend your time and prioritize. If your goals are to relax and you feel like watching an episode of The Office helps you to relax more than getting a quick workout in, and you truly believe that that's going to get you more toward the person that you want to be, then that's a great priority. But we all have to prioritize nonetheless. We all have the same 24 hours in the day. We can't all do everything. I can't be a stay-at-home mom who's with my child all day long and cooks all 3 meals and cleans the whole house and folds the laundry perfectly and has this perfect setup and run a business and train to go to the CrossFit Games and do all this. I have to choose. So the other thing that we need to remember is that in our lives, there will be stages, and that is okay. When we were all in school, we prioritized school, some of us, I did, I guess, and doing well in school. And we were there for a large chunk of our day, and it's what took up our time. It was our priority at the time. Now, when you get out of school, your priority might become your job. It might become, for me, for a long time, it was the athletic achievements that I was trying to do. And it was not wrong for me to prioritize that for a period of time, but there was a time where that was maybe not the best priority to have anymore. And I wanted to move on to something else. And so my priority became work or growing the street parking business. And fitness, whilst was still there, was not as big of a priority. So I do believe in the prioritizing thing and the quotes that we've seen so much about that. My current non-priorities, for example, I don't spend a lot of time with friends. I have friends. I talk to them on the phone. I hire some people, and then they become my friends, so I get to see them at work. But I don't go out a lot with friends. I don't travel a lot with friends, and I would love to, but it's right now at this very point in my life not a huge priority. It has been in the past. It's just not right now. I don't watch a lot of TV. Even when I have the TV on, like in the background, I'm usually doing something else, working or something like that. It's just not something right now that's adding a lot of value to my life. I don't watch a lot of like news shows, or I don't watch the Kardashians or any of that stuff that other people get really into. It's just not helping me get to where my goals are at right now. I do love to explore and travel, and I would love to take Julian and Knox and travel the world. We don't do that right now because we're not in that stage right now. While I'm pregnant and while Knox is young and while our business is young, it's just not a priority for us to do that yet. So that will become a priority at some point. It's not right now. Extra fitness, as mentioned, I used to work out for hours a day. That used to be a priority. It no longer is. Now it's 30, 45 minutes in and out at my house. That's as much as I'm going to prioritize working out right now. And the list goes on and on, right? So step one, before the end of the day or before you start to say, I don't have time, come up with a list of your priorities and your goals and see if there are things that you're doing that are not helping you to achieve those. That is step one for sure. But what the post was about and what I want to talk about is that a lot of times I think we have a misunderstanding of how you're spending your time, how you can reorganize your time, or how much time you actually do need to see change. And I think a lot of the problems that we have is how we view time in general. And this starts when we're very young. So I think, and this might just be a US thing, but I'm guessing that it's common other places too. So we view Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, as work time. So that's the time that I have to work. we've kind of been taught or are under the impression when it comes to fitness that it requires you to physically go to a location and spend at least an hour 5 days a week, I would say. If you just asked someone on the street how often to be in an effective workout program, how much time you need, they would say you would need at least an hour 5 times a week to really see results. I think that's a pretty general understanding that we have. So I think a lot of times when we say, I don't have time, we think of time in the wrong way, or we think that we need more time than we do, or we think there's specific times that are appropriate for specific things only. So even take work, for example, and I've read some really interesting statistics. I wish I would have written some down for this podcast, but let's be honest, and just no one's going to hear what you answer in your brain right now when you're thinking about this. Think about your job. Let's say you're a 9-to-5 job person. How many hours, or I mean, it might even be minutes, do you think when you're in your office or at your station or whatever it is that you do you spend actually working? I mean, if some of you are listening to this at your job right now and scrolling Instagram or shopping online at the same time. And I'm not hating on that at all, because as long as you finish the tasks that you're assigned to do, then it's fine, I guess, as long as you don't get caught or your boss has a problem with it. But just because you're at work for 8 hours does not mean you spent 8 hours of dedicated time doing your job or improving the business or growing whatever it is. Or, there are, I think, in the statistics, they say like 3 hours out of the day on average is how much people actually work at their jobs. So it's pretty interesting when you think about it, because the whole clock in, clock out thing, while I understand it, it's not really how we do things here at Street Parking, because for us, it's do your job. Yes, we would like you to come in here so that we can all communicate and we can all, if something comes up, you guys are here and we can talk about it or we can make it happen. Like this podcast today, I said, Salvi, we're going to film it today instead of on Sunday, so you don't have to spend as much time on Sunday with us. But it's not a clock in, clock out thing. If you want to work on your projects on Friday night at 8 p.m., go for it. If you want to do it on Tuesday morning at 5 a.m., go for it. So I think a lot of times bosses are like, oh my gosh, like they're not putting in enough hours. And it's like, well, what are you actually doing? So when it came to starting Street Parking or other little side projects that I've had, if I only worked from 9 to 5, I would not be anywhere near where we are right now. So building this business became a priority for us, and I would do it every waking hour that I could. So I don't recommend living your life that way, but when it's a priority, which it was when we were first starting, and when it's a huge goal that we had, we put a lot of time into it. We still do. And so I think we got to get away from looking at the hours of the day as 9 to 5, and then afterwards it's free time, leisure time. So if you've got a goal to do something, don't get so wrapped up in feeling like you have to make it fit into that time window that society or you grew up thinking of work as work time. Let's talk about the fitness example, because this is really what the post was about. Even before I was competing in CrossFit and was a CrossFit athlete, I was in more the bodybuilding scene, which honestly, if you want to talk about people who spend a lot of time for not a lot of effort, it's in more, you'll see that a lot in a conventional gym. I could go to the conventional gym back in the day for 3 hours and do 5 movements and 30 minutes of cardio, and I could let it take me 3 hours because I'm like doing a set, and then I'm chatting, and then I'm doing a set, and then I'm going to get water, and then I'm doing a set, and then I'm chatting again, and oh my gosh, like my friend just came in and we're catching up. And again, like that's not bad. I was like 20 years old at the time. I didn't have anything else to do. I didn't have any other goals necessarily at the time. So that's great. But I did not do 3 hours worth of work while I was there. That exact same workout that I would do with like, back in the day, it was like bicep curls and tricep extensions and bench press and, some calf raises. I don't know. I could have done all of that in 45 minutes easily and been in and out, but I was there for 3 hours. And then, of course, you tell your friends like, oh, yeah, I go to the gym for like 3 hours a day. And they're like, well, man, I don't have that kind of time. Like, I could never do that. I can barely like fit in 20-minute walk with my kids, So that's where this mistaking time for effort thing is a problem. So yeah, I could have done that in 45 minutes at my house. And the example that I'll give sometimes is running. Because this is a perfect one that you can really think of. If you walk 5 miles, how long would it take you to walk 5 miles? Let's say you walk at like a 15-minute mile pace if you're walking. That's 75 minutes, so like an hour and 15 minutes, right? Am I doing math correctly? Just like looking at Salvi to make sure he's shaking his head. You walk 5 miles. You could say, I exercised for 1 hour and 15 minutes. And walking 5 miles, like that's great. What if you said, I ran 5 miles as hard as I could, and it took you, I don't know, let's say 45 minutes or less. You could say, oh, I only worked out for 45 minutes today. But you ran and you went as hard as you possibly could. Which one of those is actually going to make you more fit? Which one of those is going to get you better results? It's not that either one of them are wrong. Go for a walk. But what I'm saying is whether it's building your business, whether it's spending time with your kids even, whether it's fitness, the more effort you put in, the less time you're going to need. So when you're with your family, be with them completely 100%. Gary Vee talks about this a lot. He says that, I can't work the way that you do because I want to be home with my kids. But then he'll say being home with my kids means plopping in front of the TV and not paying attention to them, but being in the same room, where you could spend 30 minutes with your kids every day, but be with them, ask them how their day was, do arts and crafts with them, take them cool places, play video games with them, be with them, as opposed to being in the same room with them for 2 hours. So it comes down to quality over quantity. Run the 5 miles instead of walking the 5 miles, or if you only have 30 minutes, run 3 miles and give it everything that you've got. You're going to get better results than if you do nothing at all because you feel like you don't have an hour of time. I've said this over and over again, and it's true with consistency, but once we get people consistent in their workouts, the next thing that we really start talking to them about is intensity. So we want to see people just find a way to be consistent. If that means that you take a 10-minute walk 5 days a week, and then you do that for 3-4 weeks, and then it's like, okay, now try to jog a little bit because now we're trying to ramp up the intensity and get more out of that 10 minutes. So first, find any block of time that you can. If it's 10 minutes, if it's 20 minutes, if it's 30 minutes, great. Be consistent with it first, and now let's get as much out of it as possible. So you don't need to leave your home. You don't need to leave your living room. You don't need to go to a location. You don't need to have a lot of fancy equipment, but what you do need is to find a small window of time and commit to it 100%. Give the effort that you can give for that period of time. Don't just kind of like meander through it. You're not going to be like, doing your workout and scrolling Instagram in between rounds or things like that. Be in it completely, 100%, and then move on to the next thing. Effort and time are not the same thing. You can take a workout that would take someone 15 minutes. You can take that same workout and make it take an hour. It does not make it more effective. It actually probably makes it less effective because you weren't going as hard in that workout. So take that approach. I want you guys to think about that. And apply it to other areas. Some other things that I'm working on, because again, like I feel like I'm pretty confident in the fitness stuff, and I know a lot of you guys are like, yeah, but you're in it already and you've been doing it for so long. So I do like to give that advice, but I do also like to give you guys the reality of my life is that not everything's this easy for me. So one thing that Julian and I have been doing lately, and when I was kind of reading some stuff, getting ready for this podcast, is I don't have time to read. nobody has time to read. Like reading, it sounds like something they used to do in like the old days. Like you would just like sit on the porch and read. My mom reads so much. My mom probably reads at least 2 books a week. And when she comes to visit, she just lounges and reads. And I'm like, my mind's going a million miles a minute. Like I would fall asleep because I'm so busy that I'm like exhausted. And like if I started reading, my brain would just immediately go to the to-do list that I have. And I know so many of us have this problem, right? So reading can be tough, but all of us have like a goal to get smarter. So one thing that Julian and I have done, and it's been really important in both of our lives, I would say the last like year, is audiobooks. I mean, a lot of you guys are probably right now listening to this driving. I know I read a lot or listen to podcasts a lot when I'm walking my dog. Or nursing mamas out there, of course, connect with your child, and some of those moments you should just be in there in the moment and not have any distractions. But it's a lot of hours when you're doing that. So get something out of it more than playing Candy Crush on your phone. If you're waiting for your flight or if you're in traffic, listen to something that will help you grow and help you reach your goals or motivate you or something, instead of just listening to, I mean, music's great also, by the way. I'm a huge music fan, but sometimes you can get a little bit more out of it. When you're on a flight, I love audiobooks on a flight too, because I see people on those flights for 3 hours. They're playing games on their phones, which I get it. Flights are boring, but that might be the time that you actually have time to read. On your walks, when I'm actually, another time that I listen to audiobooks a lot is when I'm putting on my makeup. Every day I put my earpods in when I'm doing my hair and my makeup, listening to audiobooks. So that just times like that where you don't really need to be thinking about anything else are not wasted. Reprioritizing your time, getting the most out of every moment, and really just not mistaking time spent for effort put in. Not thinking that you need to make everything fit into this model that you maybe learned growing up of 9 to 5 is work time, after 5 is chill time or family time only, and then but family time is really just watching TV. You can still grow and learn a lot in those off hours. You can still work in those off hours. Make your time and make it work for you, and make that list of priorities and put in the effort. When you're in the moment, whether you're at work, you're at home with your kids, you're in your workout, even if the time for all of those is short and seems like it's not good enough, if the effort is there, the results will come. So that's just kind of what was on my mind this week, you guys, as I'm over here trying to juggle so many things. I hope that helps get your brain thinking about how you can put in a little bit more effort or fill in those time gaps where you're not doing anything productive. And don't forget to take a few moments for yourself here and there as well to completely clear your mind. That's hugely important, and can also help you hit a little bit of a reset. Have a good day.